Is this recorded too?
Yeah, it's recorded too.
Nice. Okay.
Hold on.
It's usually just for court purposes.
Yeah.
That's why I say I hope I don't say anything that gets me divorced.
Well, I was.
I hope so too.
I mean,
I don't know if I can handle that on my conscience.
crazier shit's happened.
Oh, I believe we are on the internet at this moment. My name is Alex, and this is StageCraft. I'm here with my buddy Don.
Hi.
And we are broadcasting with the undeniable Suspect Down. Gentlemen, could you check in, introduce yourselves?
This is Mike, drums for Suspect Down.
Chris Newman, vocals and guitar.
I like this video shot. Looks like your last known photo. Like, right?
Am I going MIA after this?
Exactly. Like from the looks of it, it's like, and then that was the last we ever saw them.
I got a box in the back of my truck for him.
Never seen again.
Witness protection.
All right. So, not to be completely unprofessional, but would you gentlemen hold the floor while I make sure the signal is going out to the masses?
Sure. To the masses. Okay,
Yes.
we are going to the masses. Mike, why don't you start, or Chris, you start talking about how to get noticed as a band, how to get noticed musically. What do you got?
In a good way.
In a good,
Yeah,
In a good way.
I mean, but everybody knows you got to know your shit.
Yeah.
Can we say that?
Yeah, we can now.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we allowed to swear?
We are allowed to. Finally, we
okay.
have the chains of the oppressive regime of a radio station off of us. We're allowed to say anything we
no
want.
FTC.
Oh. So I can't fucking say fuck. All right. I would never fucking say fuck.
Right.
Now nobody under the age of whatever the legal limit is can listen to this. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start. Getting noticed is, for me and for us, it's all about perseverance. It's all about persistence. It's all about the network at the end of the day. Like they say the streets are lined with talented musicians, and 99% of them never get noticed.
I thought it's zeros and ones.
Zeros and ones, yes, that too. Yeah, probably, yeah, zeros and ones. So, getting noticed is just all about persistence. It's all about not being afraid to ask. If we didn't go out and just ask and ask and ask, this is my favorite story to tell with Don Zentera. The day that Suspect Down said, we're going to go record an EP, we have songs, we're ready to do it, I said, all right, I'm going to look around in the area, in Northern Virginia, D.C. area, and I'm going to find a engineer, a producer, somebody that can do it. I Googled that, and Don, you're one of the first names that came up.
Wow.
And I looked, and I was like, oh, I know who this guy is. I was like, I had just seen you on the Foo Fighters documentary on Sonic Highways. And I was like, there's no way in hell this guy's going to work with us. And I said, nah, fuck it, I'm going to give him a call. So I give him a call, get right on the phone. Hey, Mike, how you doing? You want to, come on up and we can meet and we can talk and see how it goes. And I was just sitting there like in shock. I couldn't believe it. I called Chris immediately. It's like, you're never going to believe who I just talked to. And one thing led to another, and here we are, almost 2 years later, hanging out with you on your radio show, and we're all good friends, and we play music together, and you record for us, but again, it's just my immediate reaction was, Don is a living legend. There's no way this guy is going to work with us. We're nobody. Nobody knows who we are.
But you have to start with the point of view of that most artists they know about the whole recognition game, and they give and they take both ways. Yeah. So it's happened to me too. Some people that I revered for years. I saw them at a convention once, and hey, yes, here's I use this technique, and yes, I like doing this. If they don't like it, I just tell them to bug off.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And they're great like that.
I will say a lot has changed for me because I played in a band in the DC area in the 90s, and it's very different getting recognized now than back then. Social media is completely new. Spotify, I played, it was back pre-Napster days, so it was very interpersonal networking, right? You met another band that you admired, you try to catch up with them after a show, you open for them, and you just go from there, and you get to meet people. So part of the game is it's all similar, but it's different tools, and it's a learning process for me for sure. Trying to figure out how to amplify our audience through some of these other techniques rather than just retail playing out, meeting people.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so.
Was it because this is a term that I have not heard in a long time, but I've heard it recently because I didn't even know it still went on. Have you ever heard the term gatekeeping?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Okay.
With how does that connect with music though? Because you want to open the floodgates and just let it all out.
Well, so that was interesting. So the band that posted on social media and said, "Hey, I don't appreciate people gatekeeping." And what they were referring to is they were referring to people knowing good bands and not telling other people about the bands.
Oh wow.
And I first of all, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure it is. I'm just telling you something I read on social media. But the term of gatekeeping, as it pertains to allowing people into your community or onto your bill or into your even genre, right? That's still around to a certain extent because people want to be on the bill with bands that sort of share something in common with them, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for yourselves, like, where do you find yourself falling in? Like, is genre an appropriate word to use? Like, how would you describe it?
That's
Go
a
ahead.
whole.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's tough to define us genre wise. I mean, I think different people hear different things, and I think we come at writing the music from so many different backgrounds that it really creates its own sort of sound. But sometimes it's a little punk, sometimes a little garage rock, sometimes a little metal. It's all kind of mixed in a blender, and I don't know that we fit into any kind of pocket mold, or genre where we could say, hey, it's a punk night, and these guys are going to be, fitting in exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I've always loved the idea of being very like Led Zeppelin-esque or Pearl Jam-esque, where it's like we have an album and we'll have a song that sounds like, to Chris's point, a song that's very metal, and then the next song is like very punk, and then the next song is very garage rock. It's like we wanted to be kind of chameleons. Like we wanted to just let our influences shine through in our songwriting, and we all for the most part contribute to the songwriting process for the most part. I mean, besides Chris, sometimes Chris will just come in and be like, here's a song, here's the bass, here's the lead guitar, here's the rhythm guitar, here's the vocals, here's everything. Mike, come up with some drums, and I'm like, cool, we got a song. But it's always been kind of that way as far as, just not really defining a genre. Although I will say, to your point about like, I don't know, it's like coming in with, do you want to be more in a target genre of music so you can say this band sounds like people for fans of this or for fans of that. But I've seen bills like somebody was talking the other day. Yeah, I remember going to this show in the late '80s and it was like Guns N' Roses and Pink Floyd and Metallica, and I was like, what? It's like that is such a random lineup. But man, I'll bet you those people had a good time because it doesn't have to all be the same style on like a bill. And it's whether it's a local show or it's an arena show. That's so.
I think people are more open to diverse genres now than 20 years ago. That's another change. I think people were definitely, I'm a punk guy and that's what I do and that's what I listen to, and if you do anything else, you're a sellout. Like that was kind of the thing. But now, I mean, you look at a festival like Bonnaroo and you're going to have everything from hip hop down to hard rock, all mixed up. And there's a lot of festivals like that now. And I think
Sometimes playing at the same time.
Yeah.
Three fucking stages going on, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. I love a lot of different types of music. I have a pretty heavy jazz background too. So, it's kind of, so I love all sorts of stuff. And, I think maybe elements of that may come out in parts of our music. So
For sure.
yeah.
Although there's pluses to just going down a single road. In other words, like the tribute bands, for instance, they make a good deal of money and living, and they have a lot of shows because people know what to expect.
Yep.
The people that come there are going to like what they do.
Yeah.
They come liking what they do.
Yeah.
And that it's sort of like a built-in comfort zone.
Well, and that's another thing. I actually had somebody say to us recently, a band called Good Time Alibi from Fredericksburg that we're going to start playing a lot more with. And the singer was like, oh, can you create a flyer for this show? And I created it, and I put some of that pop art stuff in there, which for any of our listeners or, that haven't listened to us, that's very predominant in our style. There's always pop art elements of everything. And he said to me, he's like, hey, that's really smart that you keep using that consistently for your brand. And so that's another big piece too, is like having something, because as an original band, as we all know, it's much, much, much harder to break into the music scene as opposed to being in a tribute band where you're playing stuff everybody knows. It's hard to get people to come listen to you. So you have something that people can recognize. Oh, I know that band. They always have that style of artwork and this and that. You know, it just kind of sets you apart instead of just being all over the place.
I do
Now-
like an aesthetic.
Yeah.
I like, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, you guys play all original songs?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple originals that we play around with. Yeah, a couple. Yeah, I'm sorry, a couple covers.
But almost all originals. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so it is, I mean, it's an uphill climb in a sense. You've got to get the people used to your music and liking it after that.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, and you know, even going back to like Chris's original statement about networking and how it was different back in the 90s than it is now, because you have social media now, you have all these other things where you don't have to ever leave your house really to get your name out there, besides playing live, which is obviously incredibly important and probably the most important part. But at the end of the day, it's all about the networking though, right? Like all about the networking, whether it's sitting down here with you guys and talking about this shit, or posting something on social media, consistently posting on social media, because that's so important, because we're all glued to our phones these days, right? It doesn't matter. It's all networking, whatever flavor it is. If it's social media, if it's walking down the street, it's handing out flyers, it's, you know, rocking your street team, whatever it is, it's all goes back to networking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be where the people are, or where their attention is, right? You know, I mean, there was a time that running, if you wanted people's attention, you would put your shit on a billboard, right? And now that's not quite the same way, you know, because of the damn laws, you know. But you know, and then TV,
Still use telephone poles.
yeah, well, and there was a band. I won't say the name, because I don't want to give them free press. They're perfectly nice. I just, you know, because the point of the story is that they were ubiquitous for a minute. I don't know why, but no one has posted posters often in sort of the area of Petworth and Columbia Heights and Mount Pleasant recently. There's like an occasional flyer every now and then. But this one particular band, they did the fucking full Monty. Like, they did every goddamn thing ever. And of course, like, it was in my brain embedded. I knew exactly the date and where they were playing and the name of the band, because it was everywhere. And I was like, that's pretty smart, you know. But it was smart because it stood out. It was different than what you would expect, right? And so for yourselves, you know, you were talking about having, you know, like a particular visual style, right, for the flyers. Do you ever feel like that you're, you know, I hate to use this phrase, but you'll know what I mean. Do you ever zig when people think you're going to zag, you know, because you're trying to, you know, get a little bit of attention? Or do you stay within like a particular confines of something because you're trying to reach a particular audience?
Go ahead, Chris.
Musically, we zig and zag,
Yes.
and that's big. It's a big discussion we're having now. Is that should we narrow the sound a little more, you know, or should we continue to be kind of little all over the place a little bit?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, as I listen to it, like I said, there's a lot of different styles. We come at it from a lot of different places, but I feel like there's still a unique sound. Like I can tell, you know, I've heard people say, "Oh, you still got that Suspect Down sound," but others are, you know, like to put people in a nice little box. You know, I think humans just like to categorize things. You know, it's just it's human nature, and I think even when they're booking bills or anything, it's kind of like what box does this band fit in, and will it fit in with what I'm trying to do for that night? So yeah.
Yeah, to quote old high school counselors, find out what you do best.
Yeah.
And then follow that.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the song "Living Life Fast," the title track off our album that just came out. That is the one song that that for the most part people seem to gravitate towards, mostly, at least from the studio recording side. So that was how we got played on Sirius XM. We had Rodney Bingenheimer, we had Marky Ramone. Like, listen to it. I mean, of course, this goes back to don't be afraid to ask. You know, we submitted our music to these people thinking they're going to get thousands of submissions, and they do. And who knows, they might listen to us, but, you know, we send thousands of emails to people constantly. 99.9% of it doesn't stick. But that's why we are having this conversation. Like, do we want to kind of narrow what our sound is? And if we do, going to your point, Don, what is it going to be? Well, it should be what we know works, what we know people like.
Right.
And so staying more in that kind of pop punk kind of element, like in a way would probably be very beneficial for us. But it's hard because we like Chris. I mean, Chris is an accomplished trumpet player who's played in the Philharmonic Symphony. I mean, like things like that. And like I was a hip hop DJ like back in the day. And like, I mean, we're just, our influences are everywhere. And it very much shines through in the writing process. So it's hard for us to kind of go into one kind of box of, I don't know that we'll ever really quite be fully boxed into one kind of sound, but even getting semi-boxed into something is, I think, for us, it's a hard pill to swallow, I think.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are talking the Suspect Down, talking about networking earlier. Let's let them know that Suspect Down is here.
Yeah. Could you remind the people about the album that came out? That was a beautiful segue, by the way, that you said, and this reminds me of a song that's on our new album that just dropped. Available on all streaming platforms. Vinyl coming soon.
Watch the number on your screen.
Yeah.
Do you want to know more?
Yeah.
Scan the QR code now. There's you want it to be representative of yourselves, right? And do you ever sweat like the idea of changing something? Like I'm stupid, I get into my head. I'm like, well, is this really what I'm all about? Is this me? When I'm not recognizing the fact that if I'm doing it, that is me, right? Do you ever sweat that shit? Do you ever think about that?
I sweat it less. Like I just feel like it's a journey, it's a creative journey, and I just don't worry about it. Like song will come to me and I'll think, hey, let's kind of work it. I think it's good, and let's do it. And I've brought some pretty different songs, probably two of the bookends on the album, as far as maybe our least heavy song, and maybe some of the others, heavier garage rock kind of stuff. So I don't worry about it. I think others, bring that though. They because again, I think it's that whole, what genre are you? What box can we put you in?
Right.
And I think that's the more, do we do that to get recognized more? Will that help us if we do box ourselves in? But personally, I like just to see where the creative process takes me. So
I think the faster track is to get into one.
I agree. Yeah.
The faster track.
Yep.
Totally. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Depends on how you want to do it. Like me, like I'm a, I mean, you guys know, Alex, you don't know me that well yet, but I'm a pretty high-strung guy, and like my brain is running 1,000,000 miles an hour constantly. So when I'm thinking
hamsters at the wheel.
the hamster is at the wheel. There's squirrels, hamsters. There's all kinds of fucking rodents running around.
Out
Yeah.
of all the holes. Yeah.
You know that movie Up with the dog where he's like talking and he's like, squirrel! I have a coffee mug with that in my house. I'm not joking.
It was like a documentary.
Yeah. But I mean, it's for me, I'm like so critical about that. I'm always thinking about how do we get that next level of getting noticed? Like, how do we get there? How do we get there? How do we get there? Where Chris is much more laid back than I am when it comes to that. And I want us to just do what we want to do as well, but at the same time, it's like I want us to move 100 times faster than we probably ever will.
Right.
But that's just how I operate. So it's also good. That's another thing in a band too. Like if you have everybody that has the same personality type and it just doesn't work. It's like,
We're a good balance.
we are a good balance.
We're a good balance.
We are a very good balance. So, I mean, that's another important thing because it's like trying to date a chick that's like the same personality as you. That shit doesn't work because you're just constantly just like.
The point at which you realize you're dating yourself is a terrifying fucking
Right,
moment.
right,
Yeah.
right. That's why my wife is totally opposite of me,
Like, this
completely.
isn't gonna fucking work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love you, baby. We're exactly alike. We're actually we're the exact opposites on. If you're into astrology, we're the exact opposites. Her birth date is exactly the opposite of mine on the astrological chart. Yeah, so we're actually very similar, but in really different ways.
Yeah.
But we're both fairly terrible people. I'm kidding.
I could tell. I've only known you for like 20 minutes, but I can tell. Yeah.
I could tell you are a pretty fucking evil person. No offense. I'm sure you're.
I didn't want to say it, but you brought it up, man.
My wife's a Valentine's birthday, so I'm in big trouble in a week. So.
Oh, that's that's our anniversary.
Oh, is it
Valentine's
really?
Day.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. I don't get away with much on Valentine's
What
Day.
the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Okay, let's delve into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, you've been married how long?
19 years. Going to be going on 19.
How do you get a little bit of excitement into Valentine's Day gifts or presents? I mean, because you can only give candy so much.
Careful.
You can only give flowers so much.
Step 1 is you get a box.
Yeah.
Step 2, you cut a hole in that box.
Well, I look at my pay stub and I start multiplying and figure out how big the box has to be and what's going to keep me out of trouble.
It's like in The Office where Michael's going to propose and he's like, pulls out the ring and they're like, oh my God, what is that? And he's like, well, yeah, they say 3 years salary, right?
Well, funny on this, on the anniversary. So, I planned a trip to Ireland this fall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, thinking it was to celebrate my 20th anniversary, and then my wife says, it's only going to be 19. So I was like,
now next year you got to do a lot
Buddy,
more.
I mean, like we're going into the 20.
Yeah.
It's going into 20 years.
That's
Into
right.
20.
No, but honestly,
Take your pick, romance or math.
Yeah, but she indulges my rock and roll lifestyle, so I'm blessed. She puts up with a lot.
Indeed,
So-
she does.
Did she know you before you were rock and roll?
Yeah, she actually knew me right after the band I was playing with in the 90s here in the DC area kind of broke up.
What was the name of it?
The name of that band was The Instigators. It was a ska punk band. We played around 4 or 5 years. We really toured all over the country, and
Yeah.
it was pretty cool. And still played the old 930 Club, so I got to do that, which was pretty cool, and the new one. But then I kind of domesticated a little bit when she met me. So this is a little new for her. I've always been a musician, mostly jazz and blues and stuff lately. Prior to this, but so she's always put up with a little bit of that. But this is new, and I'm just glad she's indulging me.
That's great.
I'm also glad. Thank you, Heather, for listening.
Thanks, Heather.
Talking about jazz and blues, I'm gonna give a shout out to my nephew, who's a drummer, is playing the 16th in Easton, Maryland, with Robert Cray.
Oh, I love Robert Cray. Yeah,
he's
Wow.
he's great.
he's a legend. Yeah.
Where in Maryland?
It's in Easton.
Easton?
It's the county seat in there. It's on the eastern shore.
Okay.
Only about 50, 60 miles from here, I think.
No kidding.
It's actually I believe its main output is soybeans. And
Really?
yeah, you hit up Easton on the way when you're going out to like the ocean, not Ocean City, but
St. Michael's.
yeah, St. Michael's, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I stayed there. I stayed in Easton overnight once
Oh wow.
with my girlfriend.
Where at?
It was probably a Best Western, if I had to guess, or something along those lines. And it was the halfway point between here and St. Michael's. And we were like, oh, let's stay in Easton.
Yeah.
There's probably something going on there. There's nothing going on in Easton. Nothing
True.
going on there. Yeah, but they had a great pool, and I remember because we realized as we were about to take the trip, like nothing's going on in Easton, and I was like, well, whatever reason, I was like, let's pick up a whole chicken at the Pollo Sobraso and a bottle of whiskey, and we'll just we'll make a time of it. And it was a wonderful time.
I was going to say, that sounds like a great time.
Sometimes it's great just
good.
unplug and have a low key night.
Yeah. Drink a bottle of whiskey and eat some chicken. Yeah.
Definitely.
And here we are 9 years later.
Hey.
Knock on wood.
all right.
If you ever go again, Tidewater Inn.
Oh, that's
I
what.
think I stayed at the Tidewater Inn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right across from the theater, the Avalon Theater, where he's playing.
Oh man, I didn't know about any of
His
this.
name is George Sluppick.
Okay, we'll have to check this out.
And if you're interested in hearing George on our show, you can check out the Mixcloud archives. We had him on the
That's
show.
true.
Yeah,
Very
that's
cool.
true.
What's the date, Don, that he's playing?
16th
16th? Okay.
February.
16th.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
next week.
That's next Friday.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Next Friday.
Make your Valentine's Day
Thursday?
plans now.
Maybe Thursday. Like, isn't it?
16th is Friday. I know that
Okay.
because I'm
I think
gonna
it's
be
the 15th. I think it's the 15th he's playing.
out. Okay. We'll still be
Yeah,
out on
yeah,
that day.
15th is playing because we're driving back the 16th.
Very cool.
Everybody knows Thursday's the new Friday.
That's true.
Exactly.
Friday Eve.
Yeah.
What, in terms of lessons, how if you don't mind us saying, how old are you?
I am 51.
51. How old are you?
41.
So the lessons when you played music versus younger versus older, I know things were different. And one of my favorite parts about talking to people our age is that we remember the before times, before the internet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are some of the lessons that still hold true no matter what the things are? Like obviously posting flyers is different now, like we were just saying.
Yeah.
Or zines.
Or zines.
Yeah,
Right?
zines,
Well,
yeah.
zines are coming back strong.
Oh,
Are
shit.
they really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I have seen some of that. Yeah.
Huge. If you go down, there's this bookstore that's right outside the Tacoma Park radio station. They have a whole wall of zines. I'm talking a whole wall of zines. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. What are the lessons that transcend technology? What have you found to be true back in the 80s and 90s and even today?
I will just say that I will harp on this all night and for the rest of my life. It's
Please
just
do.
the networking piece.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what platform, what technology you have, you don't have. It's all about your network. It's all about talking to people and being nice to people. Don't be an asshole. If you're an asshole, people are going to notice. Like that's just a general rule of thumb. And going back to that whole concept of gatekeeping, it's like don't do that. Like everybody's in this together as a team, which is a hard thing to say because the music business is incredibly competitive. Might be one of the most competitive industries in existence, but you still have to treat people with respect. You still have to treat people as if they're on a team. That's like with us. Like every show we play, we try to go to different bands every single show we play, and we're putting together a bill. It's not because we're not looking for a specific sound in this. It's just we want to just be in this, and we want to be part of something bigger than just Suspect Down, because it is much bigger than us, and it always will be, and it'll be bigger than any other band ever.
Makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, how you get the word out there, if it's social media or zines or whatever the case may be, that's always just the number one rule. I mean, for me anyway.
And don't be a flake. Like there are a lot of flakes that are artists, right? And you have to
absolutely.
be show up on time. Don't get drunk right before the gig. I mean, a lot of this stuff is very common stuff, especially with a lot of bands, early or late. Right? But just really being responsible and being professional. Like don't bail on a gig last second. Unless there's a true emergency.
Right.
Those are important things. And then for me, it's do the work. Like a lot of bands are about shtick or a scene, back in the day, but they couldn't really play any music, right?
Right.
So I've always done the work, learn how to play the instruments, learn music, put the time into the band,
Yeah.
even beyond that, and
Yep.
so it's not just easy. It's not just getting up on stage and shooting the shit and having some fun. That's all great too, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I think we take it seriously.
Yeah, we take it very seriously.
Yeah.
We always have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My my only comment on that is, and if you are the kind of person who is an asshole, and if you are the kind of person who is a flake, just be consistent with it so we know who you are. Do you know what I mean?
A label on the forehead works.
Well, it's always shitty when you find out someone's an asshole like 2 months in.
Yeah.
If you're an asshole, just come at me with that.
Yeah.
So I know, because assholes, they need help too. Like I'm sure. I've dealt with many people, like groups of assholes, and they all love each other.
Yeah.
Great, but just come at me with that so I know who you are.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the kind of person who likes to hang out with assholes.
Right.
But if you are an asshole, I'll make time for you. I just need to know you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to your point with the, because I hate to use the word professional, but there is a professionalism, right? Because we are here to entertain people.
Yeah.
If you're gonna just get up there to have fun and not practice and not give a fuck, well, that's only fun for you and the people who think that's funny, right? It's not funny for anyone else. But if that's your jam, well, go do that. But be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have reasonable expectations. Like
Don't think something's gonna
you're just
happen.
fucking around.
Yeah.
You're not gonna.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna happen for you.
But that works from both angles. In other words, there's professionalism from the musician's point of view, or the artist's point of view, let's say, and from the club owners or venue owners too.
Yeah.
And they gauge each other. Musicians know club owners are just, they hate them. Some of them they just hate. Some are great.
Yeah.
And club owners, I'm sure, say, don't book this band. They never show up.
Sure.
They show up drunk. They fell off the stage last time.
Yep. Again, it just goes back to that whole concept of networking, right? It's like every single venue that we've ever played at, we always make it a point to be as genuine and respectful to the owners, to everybody. I mean, it's, we show up on time. We're We're very polite with our communication in email. It's always got it's simple things like sending an email after the show saying, "Hey, thanks, we had a great time.
Yeah.
Really appreciate
It makes a big deal.
it."
It really does.
Those little things go such a long way,
Right.
and they remember that, and that's why I think we've been in the somewhat short time we've been playing out for less than a year, and right now I can think of 10 different club owners at the top of my head that I could email, and I could just say, "Hey, we're looking for a date this summer," and they would say, "Hey, Mike, how you doing? Yeah, good to hear from you. Here's 15 different dates this summer. Go ahead and pick one. You got it." Something like that.
That's so valuable.
It is. It's invaluable. It really is.
Either it's valuable or it's invaluable.
Oh yeah,
Which is
I
it?
think it's invaluable, Don. Come on, we're gonna split hairs, Don. Come on.
It's non-negotiable.
yeah.
There's something to be said for, you can always tell when a club owner is or a bar owner is a music lover versus someone who's there to use you to sell alcohol. And it's not that we don't understand that we're there to sell the alcohol, but the way you treat us is different. Like I got into an argument with our owner because he promised me meals for the bands. And, once he saw that the draw was a little low, which, if you had asked me at the beginning, I would have told you the draw was low, because that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden he started to kind of like backpedal on the meals. And I was like, no, this is what you promised. These people came out. You're not going to feed them now because the draw's not, fuck you. And I was like, everything about this interaction tells me about how to do business with you now, and that really kind of pissed me off, and the difference is like when you have the music lovers and they care, right, and they're into the music and they come out to check it out. We've done a showcase or two where the owners don't even like stick around, and you're like, well, don't you want to see how this goes?
Yeah.
Like, don't you want to make sure this is a good spend of your time and money? It's always shocking to me.
Yeah.
But music lovers, you can always tell music lovers.
Yeah.
Although, to speak to their side of it,
Right.
they see a lot of shows
They do.
every night.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
And it is a business at the end of the day too. That's
It
the
is.
other thing that people,
It
I
is.
think a lot of bands have. Sometimes their expectations are so high, and I'm like, look, you got to just keep in mind that this is a business, right? Like them selling booze, them selling food, them doing this, them bringing in people. That's their livelihood. That's the difference between keeping the lights on and putting food on the table for their family for a lot of these guys. And so, it just goes back to just be a nice person.
Yes.
Just be nice. That's it. It's really not that hard. Unless you're an asshole, and then then you're an
It
asshole.
is really hard to do if you're an asshole.
Yeah.
As my parents used to say, it's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
Nice to be nice.
And it's not always easy to be nice either.
No, you're right. You're
'Cause you're
absolutely
going to
right.
deal with difficult people regardless, and that's another really good thing because we've certainly dealt with people that are not easy to navigate, and you just have to. Got it. Thank you very much. I can think of a few off the top of my head. I won't name them, but it's hey, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Have a nice day. And
Yeah.
to your point about if you're an asshole, just let me know up front so that way I can move on because I don't want to surround myself with those kind of people.
Or prepare myself.
Or prepare
'cause
myself,
Some
yeah.
asshole. I have friends who are assholes, and I just got to get myself ready because no ill will towards them. I'm like, I know it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's
It's not your fault.
not your fault.
I just
You're
can't be
acting-
around you because I'm going to punch you in the face. I mean, I'm joking. I do not condone violence. Suspect down does not condone violence.
45-minute timer on us hanging out. That's all. No big deal.
Yeah.
Sorry, Uncle Mark. I'm not talking about you.
But it's true though. The timing thing. I know. I've talked to my wife. There's certain people. She says, we can go for about 30 minutes. That's it. After that, it gets kind of shaky. Really?
Yeah.
No, you get into arguments.
Yeah, man.
You don't want to. You want to keep it kind of surfing above the waves. If you go down too deep, you hit the octopuses.
Yeah.
Or octopi, or whatever the hell they are.
Yeah.
8 legs. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. No offense to octopus. Might be listening.
So many jokes come to
arms.
mind, but I'll keep them.
8 arms. Sorry. What did I say? 8 eyes?
8 legs.
Oh, wait. 8 legs. They're arms, not legs.
I don't know. Have
All
someone
right.
call in.
Who's got the internet? Somebody look it up.
Not now, though. I'm using the internet to
Oh,
stream this.
shit. Okay.
No one get up. Everyone turn your Wi-Fi off. We need all the.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
nobody has the internet in their pocket right now. No.
8 tentacles.
Tentacles, that is correct, yes. With the little suckers.
Yeah, little
They have little teeth inside those things. It's
A
terrifying.
little soul.
So, okay,
suckers.
we got we got
Sorry, we got onto it.
networking. Obviously, playing out is a big thing. Showing your face to a lot of people, especially new people, and that's why there are people when we played with you guys that have never seen us or never heard of us.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Great.
I love it. And that's always the case when you play with a number of bands.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Chris. Another thing too is just promo merchandise, right? So we early on invested a bunch of money in T-shirts and stickers and all this, and for the first couple shows we were trying to sell everything, and the next thing you know, we started just giving away stuff, and it was kind of like, I mean, we haven't really made any money really playing out, right? I mean, because we're just starting out. But it came to the point where it's like we're at shows now, and it's like, hey, what size shirt do you wear? What size shirt do you wear? And it's just like, here you go. Here's a shirt. Here's a shirt. Here's a shirt. Yeah, I mean, we're not making money off it, but hey, now when we play shows, people show up with our shirts on.
They do.
Like,
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
and it's really cool. And we created this. We have a song called "Rise." That's the barn burner song that we play at the end of every single set. It's a hardcore punk song.
Available on all streaming platforms.
Available on all streaming platforms, Spotify and everywhere else. Plug.
When's the vinyl coming out?
The vinyl should be here in, I'm going to say May right now.
Wonderful.
Test presses came out yesterday, but the production is moving very quickly.
And if you want to see some unbridled joy, check out Suspect Down's Instagram. When my man here had the test pressings in his hand,
Yeah,
that
was
is
great.
some unbridled
That is
joy right
unbridled.
there. That is just one. You want to eat that.
Oh, it was,
that's some joy. right there.
those showed up, and they showed up a day. They showed up 4 weeks early, and then they were supposed to be here today. And then I got a text yesterday saying they were showing up yesterday, and I was like ready to just jump through the roof. As soon as they came in, I pulled them up, and I was like, I asked my wife, I was like, "Come on, we got to get pictures right now. I'm so excited. I'm so excited." Like it was, it's like
you're not this excited about our.
I went on. I put on a Pointer Sisters "I'm So Excited" record and just went nuts. But but that song, the chorus? The chorus for that is "You got a problem, I'm going to solve it," and it was just always really cool. So when we were making our first shirts and our first logos, we just put Suspect Down. We put problem solvers. It was just cool. And so then next thing you know, we're giving out all these shirts. People are starting to show up with our shirts on all the time. I was like, well, shit, we got to start a fan club. We'll be the Problem Solvers Club. Yeah. And it goes back to, like, if you look at our Instagram, @SuspectDownBand, Instagram @SuspectDownBand, shameless plug. We created a little fan club, highlight, and now you can click on that, and you can click through all the people that we have pictures with our shirts on. And again, I mean, we spent some money on them. It wasn't cheap, but I mean, it's the marketing you're getting for that, and people listening to you and people knowing who you are is just so incredibly valuable. I mean, it's amazing. I love it. I see like Sandy Redmond show up with our shirt on. Every single show we play, she shows up with our shirt on, and I'm just like,
Awesome. Yeah.
this is fantastic. Let me get another picture with you. It's great.
She's a good fan.
She really is. Yeah. Shout out to Sandy Redmond. Follow her on YouTube and Instagram. REDMEN?
MAN.
MAN. Sorry. Yeah.
I sometimes like playing for unsuspected crowds. So sometimes you've got a crowd and they know what they're coming for, but sometimes when you play a place where nobody knows you or even your genre necessarily into genre, and like reaching sort of unusual fans or people who wouldn't normally listen to you is sometimes kind of fun.
Or misqualified.
Misqualified.
You were looking for a polka band, but here we are.
Here we are, right? Yeah, and then sometimes that's kind of cool when you play different type of places like that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, like last year we played a winery, like a brewery/winery.
Sounds great.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
And
Yeah,
we-
it was
a winery.
That's a perfect example.
It is.
Wineries are like singer-songwriters.
Absolutely. So
Or-
you play an acoustic set.
Or
Yeah.
or cover bands.
Yeah, or
and
cover
so Chris and I occasionally play in a cover band, and so that was how we got into this winery. That's literally like 8 miles down the road from where we live in Spotsylvania, and it was like, hey, the cover band's gonna play, and we were like, but hey, can Suspect Down like kind of close this out. We'll do the cover band for a few sets, few hours. Everybody knows we're playing Journey and, all the stuff everybody knows. And then we came on. Then it was like, and I think predominantly the crowd was mostly kids running around
There were
screaming.
kids
They
and
probably
older.
loved
Yeah,
it.
yeah, they
They,
did.
they
yeah.
loved it, yeah.
Yeah, we blew the grapes off the vines.
Where's the drum with the cymbal? Da-da.
They're going to talk about it for years to come.
I
And they're
know,
like,
yeah.
why did that wine batch come out that particular way? Like, oh, there was this
Well, to show
punk
the
rock
business.
performance.
Yeah, I know.
I think it might have turned the grapes a bit.
Well, to show the business side of this, like they would never have booked us. But we must have sold a lot of booze because they invited us back this year.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we had a lot of crowd there, and I think they had a good night. And so it just shows that side of things.
Yeah.
One of our first showcases we sold a lot of beer. I mean, a lot of beer. And they were very excited. And when I started doing the math, I realized that the vast majority of the beer was because the bands had bought a lot of beer.
yeah.
But I was like, hey, it's a win either way.
We funded ourselves.
Oh, man. So playing a winery, though, and playing a cover band, is that like hours and hours of covers? Is it a couple hours set?
We played 2 hours of covers, and
Yeah.
then we did an hour original set.
I mean, that's impressive. That's a lot of shit, right?
Yeah, it was a lot, and it was hot.
Oh, it
a
was
hot
stupid
it was
hot.
Like it was like a 90-something plus degree day, so
Yeah.
it was a workout. But
And when you get
fun.
and when you got the only guy in the band that's working for a living, the drummer.
Oh, listen,
You got the drummer. Oh, that was rough. That was rough. I couldn't drink enough water that day. I was watching Chris up there playing guitar and singing, and he's drenched in sweat, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. I was like, I'm going to die. Had no fan, nothing. It was but that was my fault. I wasn't prepared. But
But did you have to scale down your sound at all?
we didn't.
no, because it was outside.
Yeah.
Because it was summer, it was outside. They have the place is called Wilderness Run Winery. They have a brewing company called 1781 Brewing, which they make phenomenal beer. Phenomenal. Their IPA is fantastic. But they have a really nice setup. It's on this farm. They have they make all the wine there. They brew the beer there. They do all this. They've got a little area in there. They've got like a
Cigar bar.
cigar bar, yeah, a little humidor you can go in. Like, I mean, it's a fantastic place, and they've got a little stage outside, and it's down this little hill, which is really nice because acoustically it's actually pretty nice because it's outside, but it's down this little hill, so it's almost has like kind of like an amphitheater kind of setup.
Yeah, I was going to say it.
So the sound kind of bounces off where the hill goes up, almost kind of like a berm.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really have to. In fact, we had to bring sound and set up. And Jamie, our bass player, who's not here tonight, he does audio visual stuff for a living, and so he brought these giant tower like monitor speakers and set them up because we needed additional sound. Probably because the drummer's really loud and they needed something to get over the drummer, But yeah, no, we didn't.
We
have
have
to scale anything.
the loudest drummer in the industry.
Thank you,
Put that
Chris.
on a
That's
t-shirt.
one of
too.
our
Yeah.
that's one of our claims to fame.
as long as he doesn't have two bass drums.
Yeah.
I just have a double pedal. I make up for it with that. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Chris. Thank you.
We just got a new drum set, and he's like, "Yeah, oh yeah, this one's bigger. It should be louder." And I'm like, "Oh, that's what we needed.
The musicians,
More
that,
drums."
the musicians that want to get into the winery and the brewery place, how do you start with that? How do you do it? You just call them up, cold calls?
Yeah, I mean, and it really depends. Like the breweries, it really just goes back to doing your homework, and so using social media. Social media is such an important tool these days for bands.
Yeah, talk about doing the homework.
Yeah, so like let's say for instance somebody says, "Hey, you should play at this brewery in wherever," right? So what we'll do is we'll go and we'll look on Instagram and we'll find that brewery because everybody's got an Instagram page. And not to knock Facebook or anything, but Instagram has been primarily the main tool for social media for promoting stuff. And so I'll go and I'll look and I'll just watch videos, see what they have. And if it's mostly cover bands doing cover stuff or singer-songwriter, acoustic things, whatever, then it's kind of like, we'll just pass and move on to the next thing. But if you see anything that has an inkling of any original bands, rock and roll, anything like that, it's like, okay, let's go after that. And then you send them a message. They don't usually answer. and then you go online and you look for emails, you look for people's names, right? And they'll say, "Hey, today we want to give a shout out to our manager Sharon Jones." I'm just making this up. Sharon Jones and blah blah blah. She's been with XYZ Brewery for 2 years, and we really like her and blah blah blah.
Then you go to her house. You're like, "Hey,
So
I've got to hit myself." Sorry, I interrupted.
So I don't look good in orange. So instead of going to her house, what I do is no. It's so what I do is I'll just go online and look for Sharon Jones, look for her Facebook profile, look for a phone number, look for an email, look for anything, or even in her personal Instagram page. Sharon Jones is a fictitious character for the purposes
Don't
of
look
this.
up Sharon Jones anymore.
Stalker.
If you do find a Sharon Jones, leave her alone.
She's a fictitious character for the purposes of this story. But you go and you find that person, and then you send an email, you send a text, you make a phone call, you do all this. And I got to tell you, there's been plenty of times where that has amounted to nothing. But there have been times where that has amounted to something, and it's, hey, let's talk, blah, blah, blah. And you always, that's the thing, too, is like, you always want to look for a mutual connection.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Again, what have I been saying all night? Networking, right? Yeah. You find a mutual connection. I can't tell you how many times where I've found a venue that we want to play, and I see Sharon Jones, fictitious character, and I say, let me go find her on Facebook. And I find her, and if she's, sometimes that person will be local. Hey, you have a mutual friend with blah, blah, blah. Let me reach out to that person. Hey, do you know this Sharon Jones person? Yeah, I know Sharon. I went to high school with her, blah, 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 blah. Oh, cool. Do you have her number? Yeah, I got her number, blah, blah, blah. Oh, great. I'm going to send her a text to try to get booked at XYZ Brewery. Right. Boom, it worked.
Yeah, the DMV is like the smallest goddamn town that there ever was, right? Like everyone knows everyone, and that's why it's always so important. Again, to the don't be an asshole.
That's right.
Goddamn, like how many times? I mean, the only 2 times that I've ever been an asshole.
Only 2.
Yeah, so many times you'd be surprised, like how many times that slaps you back because someone's so hurt, and you're like, oh my god, how did that fucking person know that person? It was one night. I had a shot of tequila. Leave me alone. But yeah, I mean that.
Only one shot.
Back to the neck. I mean, one at the beginning of the night, maybe a couple more later. Yeah, but that is why not being an asshole is so important, because that stuff, like for every time that you're nice to someone says, hey, that person's cool. But if you're an asshole to someone, that person's going to tell like 25 fucking people. That's right. Right? And that's a bummer. But in terms of like getting winery gigs, though, that it's a fairly lucrative market for some of the singer-songwriters. I know the pay is pretty good, because I think they're spending a lot of money on that wine. Is it just networking, or is there a circuit? What else have you played? Other ones like that?
That's the only winery, right?
It's the only winery, but breweries
are different.
Breweries are different, but I mean, I will say the winery that we played at is also doubles as a brewery too.
Sure, if they're doing it right.
I thought they're both kind of the same, aren't they?
No-ish. Because you can have a brewery anywhere you can have the tanks, but a winery, like, there's a historic, and it depends on who you believe, but like the East Coast winery, it like considers itself to be like the East Coast, like Sonoma-ish area. Like it thinks of itself pretty highly, and it's pretty historic. It's been around for a while. The brewery thing, I think, is only like 10 or 12 years old, where like breweries exploded across this area. And it really is like anywhere you can have that tank. But like wineries, like you've had to have been doing it for a minute in order to make the soil be fruitful in the way that you need it to be.
And sometimes a different clientele. They're not expecting, punk rock necessarily at the winery.
Well, but
right?
but that's what's interesting about the demographic, right? Is so now people our age and older, because
are
punk
going.
rock. How long has punk rock been around now, Don? You can tell us.
Yeah.
How many what's?
How long has punk rock been around now?
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
So if people were 18 when punk rock came out, they're touching 60 now, right?
Yeah.
They go to the wineries, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's right.
They go to the wineries, they go to the breweries, they go to all those places.
Or they go to the dialysis center.
Or they go to the dialysis.
So maybe we should start playing there.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's that drum again?
Where's that sound machine?
Sorry. Where's that sound machine?
This is gonna. I can't have my readers on, so. Oh. That was after the winery gig. Too much Chardonnay.
Yeah.
We have 17 minutes.
Whoa.
17 minutes.
You are good at math.
It's never been my. Oh no, it's technically it's 6 minutes. I totally blew that. Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
But we don't have a hard stop because we don't have the radio anymore. We're not on the radio. We don't have a hard
Of
stop.
course. We
Yeah,
don't
we can
have
do
a
anything
hard
we want.
We can do anything.
We can go all night if we want.
Absolutely.
Well, shit, give me another beer. Come on.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
I don't got it. Well, you shit. I got to drive.
Can you talk about the amount of perseverance that it takes to be good at something? Can you talk about that? You talked about being, like actually knowing how to play your instruments.
Yeah.
What kind of dedication? I think sometimes people forget that it's hard work to be good at something. Can you talk a little bit about how you found that to be for yourself?
Yeah, for me, it's a discipline. I think it's something I was just innately born with. But I've never played music completely as a career, but I've always done it fairly professionally or a high level. So before I would go to work every morning, other people exercise this and that. Like I would get up and I still do. I play music like an hour every morning, put in the time, whatever, get it done. And it's just that consistent, just like some people get up and they run 3 miles before work. I get up and play music every morning, and it's just something I've done for decades now. And it just keeps me fresh, ready to roll. And it is that discipline. And I don't think a lot of people realize there's a big physicality to playing an instrument, and you can't just put it aside for 3 months and then go out and play a gig and be great, right? You just there's fine motor skills, larger motor skills, and there's just a lot of repetition that is required to be good.
How do you keep it up, though, the enthusiasm, if you're not in a band? There's nothing on the horizon for you.
That's why you got to stay in a band.
So, I've always, for years now, after the band, because I wasn't in a band since the 90s, but I did freelance, work for decades, just, because with the job, I didn't really have time for a full-time study or anything, so I just did freelance. So you always just kept yourself fresh. But for me, I just love music so much that it's just innately, I gave it up for a 3 or 4 year period. I didn't play at all, and it's kind of interesting. I didn't think I ever would, and I was living out in the Midwest, and I ran into some old jazz musicians. Literally, they were in their 80s. They used to play back in the big bands back in the day, Benny Goodman and some of those kind of, and they heard I played, and they were like, "We're pulling you out of retirement," and I, I started playing with those guys, and it puts a spring in your step. It's just part of who I am, So I couldn't even imagine not playing music, and if I can't do it on a high level, it's hard to do it. So I do need to keep that kind of discipline. You just got to keep at it, and
right.
So.
And I just to piggyback off that, I think, Don, I was going to say before you even said it, it's just all that enthusiasm is just something that's just built into you. You can't fake that. You can't fake the enthusiasm and the love for music. It's like people that love to draw. It's like my daughter loves to draw. She draws and paints every single day. Like she's always doing something in that space. It's like with music, it's like, I always, in my mind, am always thinking about, I really need to go find time to go play. I really want to go play, whether it's sitting on drums or picking up a guitar, and whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like, it's always like, I just need to be playing music, and that's just how it's always been. I mean, Chris has played in a lot more bands than I've played in my life and done a lot more. But when I still to this day have the little drum pad, which is a little piece of wood with a rubber pad on it that my dad got me when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I still have that today in my basement, and I still look at that all the time, and I'm like, man, this is where it all started all these years ago, because I was always just beating on stuff and just always wanted to just listen to records and just hear new music, and like it was just always my thing. And like you just can't fake that. You either have it or you don't, and if you don't, I mean, that sucks. But and
it's not just playing for us too. It's listening.
It's listening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're throwing on vinyl at night before bed, and we go to shows all the time.
Right.
Like,
well, I was talking about
we
the
love
club owners. Like, it translates for musicians too. Like, you can tell the difference from a performance from someone who's just doing it and they might be good at it, right? And they might know their songs, but if they don't love music, it kind of comes through a little bit. Or if they're not into the life, you know? And sometimes people refer to it as selling your soul, right? You know, that you sold your soul for rock and roll. But to a certain extent, that's what actually takes place. Like, you give up so much, so many sacrifices take place because of what it is you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be rock and roll. It doesn't have to be music. But whatever it is you're passionate about, sometimes that's other stuff has to go by the wayside, you know, and people forget that. Don drilled this into my head one time. There was a couple times like people were like, "Oh man, I practice a couple hours a day," and Don's like, "A couple hours a day, huh? It's a good start."
But also having that dream of just going forward in music, of course, a lot of times it's dashed because you get into a band and all of a sudden, if you're into a band that's successful, you're on the road and you're playing at a whole bunch of shows, and there are a lot of musicians just, they hate it.
Yeah.
They hate it. I mean, they got into it, they wanted to get into it, and now they hate it.
Yeah. I think, you know, like when I was a kid growing up, I always wanted to get into music, and I had a couple people. In fact, I had this one guy who was a friend of mine's dad, was always talking to me about sound engineering when I was like 15, 16. Because I liked the DJing stuff, and I was just always messing around with computers and you know, trying to record samples off of records and trying to just do weird shit. And he was like, "Man, they got all these college programs for this stuff. You should really think about it." I mean, fast forward, I ended up just dropping out of high school and going to the military anyway, which, you know, was not a terrible thing. But, you know, at the end of the day, I still to this day think about this band, and I think about where does this band want to go. And I always kind of told myself in the background, I was like, I love music so much. It really is my identity. Like, it's everything to me. Everything is music. And I'm like, if I did this professionally, would I end up hating it? I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe. And so that's always kind of been in the back of my head. But it's like, you don't know until you know.
People do that for every job. I mean,
that is true.
You could be driving a bus and you think you really like driving a bus, but 20 years down the line, and it sucks, the same route over and over.
Yeah. Well, Don, you've been in the music scene for what, 40 years?
No, it's better. I think better part of 120.
20 years?
Yeah. At least 100.
120
At least 120. Yeah.
So, I mean, what keeps you fresh, you know, with everything?
Just, you know, you have to treat it as art, which means it's evolving continually, and you're always coming up with something new.
That's right.
And you can't get into a rut where you're just playing the same stuff. I mean, even now, you know, we play some, you know, in the band, we play the same songs, and I'm getting a little bit, you know, we got to move on from some of this stuff. You know, that shit's getting old.
Yeah.
Even if it's good stuff, even if it's good, you just got to keep moving until you know, just to keep it churned up.
You got to keep it different. Well, shit, Chris was just saying that a couple weeks ago.
Just talking about that. I'm like, we've been playing, you know, this set for almost about a year now, and the album's coming out. It's all great, and I'm like, okay, I want to do some different stuff now.
Yeah.
You know, like I am just ready to start writing and just doing a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that the old stuff is bad or I don't like playing it. It's just that creative juices is for me. It's about meeting other musicians and other artists and people. I love that. Like, I'm a people person. I love meeting people. I love hearing their art and their music, and then creating our own stuff. You know, so that's why I don't know if that's why I've never gotten bored with music or felt like it's a grind. But I do know a lot of professional musicians who feel that way. You know, So
Especially when you're immersed totally in it.
Totally. Or when your paycheck, you know, you're putting food on the table. Depends on you playing a gig you don't really want to do.
Right.
You know, that I do understand, and I've never been quite into that situation.
Right, and there's also like when you become an industry in and of yourself. So like if you're Taylor Swift, it's not just your livelihood. It's actually literally like 150 other people's livelihood, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that
1,000 other people's livelihood.
right, who depend on you hitting it, right, and sounding exactly the same every single night.
Yeah.
And that's got to be weird, but you know, I think for artists that we like, I think that we all collectively like, the comfort is there in order for you to take a chance on something else.
That's right.
Like if I have a foundation laid, then I know I can take chances in these other places, right? But I do have to have that foundation down. I'm not completely in the jazz realm where I can just improv different every single night, you know, and that's different for different people. But it must be, I don't know because I've never done this before, but it must be really fucking weird to play the same songs the same way every single night for the better part of a year. That's got to be really weird. Or it's got to, or maybe you don't care because there's millions of dollars on the line. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that, you know, at some point, the money just doesn't matter as much as you're being bored by it.
Right. Because it's only buying you a better hotel room.
Right.
Right. And then you're just isolated and ordering hotel porn.
Or, yeah.
I'm sorry. Now I'm talking about me again. Sorry.
Alex is talking about his evening last night.
And I don't even have a successful career, you know? Jesus.
But it's easier to weave and dive when you're in the formative stages, as you know, 99% of musicians are.
Yeah.
Because you could try different stuff. You can go into a different style. You could do that. But if you were, you know, if you're going from here to playing a show tonight and next night after that, you can't do that. There's no time to practice new songs. You got to be on stage doing the same stuff over again.
Yeah.
Show over every night.
Every night. I mean, I've watched so many countless documentaries on different bands and stuff, and it's like the only time they'd even have to write would be like on the tour bus.
Yeah.
Right.
Between shows, you know,
Right.
and then they don't sleep, and then they're burnt out, and then this.
And then the fans only want to hear the stuff that they know, or the few hits.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear the new song you just wrote, right?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of that.
Absolutely.
Don and I were chit-chatting real quick before you all arrived, and I was, you know, saying that one of the things that really cracks me up is I'm talking about audience members mostly, who say they want to have their minds blown, but they go see the same bands all the time, right? Or they go see the same genre of bands all the time, and they're just like, I just want to have my mind blown. You're like, well, how the fuck are you ever gonna have your mind blown? Or if you say the same shit all the time, right? You're not open to anything, and part of that is also like if you can see every single thing, every single genre, every single performance. Every single band on the internet, you can find it and call it up within seconds, right?
Right.
So it is harder to blow your mind, right? But that's up to the artist to figure out how to raise that bar up, right? Because there's still something about being in the moment. You can make someone put their phone down. You absolutely can. I mean, you could be real base about it and just pull your ass out and moon them. Of course, they're going to put their phone down, but that's not the good attention, right?
Or they may pull it out.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, you're canceled for showing your ass at a show. Learned that lesson the hard way. So, but
You were canned.
I know. It's canned. That's a good one. But for yourselves, like, do you ever, how seriously do you take the idea of leaving the people with something that they remember? And what do you think you do to make them remember your name?
I'm going to go first here, Chris.
Yeah.
It's everything to us. We've said from the beginning we want to be a live band. We want people to come and see us, and we want to be more of a party than a band. You know, this is why when you see us live, you listen to the studio album Living Life Fast, available on all streaming platforms by Suspect Down. You'll see, if you see us live, you'll see we throw in little teasers of different songs, popular songs. Like we do 45 seconds, maybe, not even, of like Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones. Just a real quick little teasers. We do a little quick teaser of like For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. Like little random things like that. That's just like, people are like, oh shit, I know what that is. You know, and it keeps their attention. And they remember that. Yeah, they're a really good band. They're an original band. I didn't really know a lot of their stuff. I went and checked them out. They got some really good stuff. Man, these guys throw out some crazy shit during their show, and they got a lot of energy, and their drummer's always dropping drumsticks and throwing drumsticks up in the air and hitting himself in the face and all that. That's not true. Well, maybe sometimes. But, you know, like it just being energetic. Like we play a song. We do one of the covers we do is by the Misfits called I Turned Into a Martian. And from day one, I put on a Martian mask every single time we play it. And people will come to the show and be like, did you bring the mask? Fuck yeah, I brought the mask. You know, like, so it's like little things like that it's so important, especially when you're, and this is a really good point, and this is really good advice, honestly, for any up-and-coming bands or any bands, period. Like, do things that people are going to remember. Do things that keep people's attention. It doesn't have to be all just you.
Right.
It doesn't have to be all your original stuff. Throw some random little teasers in there. I go back to the Foo Fighters. I love the Foo Fighters with all my heart and soul. We went and saw them last year, and I walked away from that, and we walked away from that like these guys are a party. Like tons of energy, like playing all the songs. Of course, yeah, they're a big giant, one of the biggest bands in the world, whatever, right? But like Dave Grohl's up there screaming, talking to everybody. It's like, oh, you want to hear some of this? He'll play a Metallica song or a Beastie Boys song, like 20, 30 seconds of it. Everybody's freaking out, and then they'll do one of their hits that people know, you know? And it's just, it was so mesmerizing and so inspirational that I was like, that's how you do it. That is how you do it. Not just going and playing the same shit every night, the same original stuff, whatever. You should play original stuff, but do some different things that people are going to remember.
I mean, it's a show.
It's a show. You're right.
And, there are people, there are artists who want to stay true to their art, and they want to be appreciated strictly for the music. And there are opportunities for them to do that, right? But that's not always how it has to be. And we're not trying to say that everything is, it's not a one-size-fits-all type situation. But if you want to be memorable, you got to do something that's memorable. And
Right.
and you can't always just moon people. It isn't.
I mean, we're high energy, and almost like in athletics they say leave it all on the field.
Right.
That's what I try to approach it with. I just try to leave it all on that stage and make people feel what I feel when we're playing our songs. You know, I mean, I think that's the kind of transmit that energy, that rock and roll energy to whoever comes and whoever's listening. I mean, that's kind of what I like to leave them with. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the trajectory for a lot of musicians or bands that have made it is first please people. Give them what they want, anything they want, different styles they want. And as they approach like their peak, then start, I'm an artist.
Yeah,
Now I've got my original stuff. Why can't you appreciate me for my art?
Yes.
But, if you think about it, I'm going to bring up the Beatles. I love the Beatles, but they did it the same way. They did My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. They did a lot of all rhythm and blues numbers. They did all kinds of stuff, folk songs, a lot of stuff. And then, once they achieved popularity, then they did some of their wackier stuff. And they said, appreciate us for our art. We couldn't say that early on because, we wanted to get your eyeballs or your ears or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
That's true.
Let's wrap it up. So
We are here with Suspect Down.
Here with Suspect Down. Check out, use your web crawler of choice. Put in the term Suspect Down, DC Band, and stuff will probably come up, right?
Yep.
Or you could just go straight to the Apple Music, right? Apple Music,
Spotify. Yep.
I didn't see you
Instagram.
on the
Follow us on
Bandcamp.
Instagram.
Yeah, so we have a Bandcamp, but it's not fully launched yet.
Okay.
And
Coming soon?
It's coming soon because the vinyl will be here very soon. We have our first run of 250 copies on 180-gram colored vinyl. So once we have that, we'll be selling those on our Bandcamp site, and then also, obviously, at shows. Make sure you come see us live. And if you follow us on Instagram, Suspect Down Band, you'll see all our shows. We're booked out almost into the fall right now.
What do you got coming up? What's the next show you got coming up?
We've got March 15th at Strange Ways in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and then we've got April 13th at Craftworks in Gainesville, Virginia. Then we're playing that same winery again in May, on May 10th in Spotsylvania. And then we're working on a couple DC shows right now. In fact, we're probably going to be playing a DC show with Don and Don's band, the Turnips of Doom, unless you've changed that name. I don't know. Don Zantara, we're playing with Don.
We're
working on that, yep. And so, yeah, and then we have a mini tour we're working on in October that's going to be New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and D.C. So probably Pittsburgh, Ithaca, New York, Baltimore, D.C., and maybe Richmond. But more details to come on
the
that soon.
Steel City Tour.
You have friends in Ithaca?
Yes.
Really? Who?
Yes. Who do I have?
You have
I have a number
relations?
of friends.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Guys that I grew up with. All a bunch of them live down there now and have a bunch of connections. And in fact, this goes back to networking, right? A guy that I went to high school with owns a club in Ithaca. And
You know,
so
Don's from up that way.
he is. He's from Rochester.
Rochester.
Yeah, I'm from Syracuse. So as we made that connection very early on. Yeah. I didn't get his height though, so I don't know. That's
Height is not a drummer's friend.
it's not.
From what I've seen,
no,
I'm going to give you a couple inches once you get a double XL T-shirt.
I'm going to order one double XL T-shirt.
Yeah, we're done.
All right, gentlemen, Suspect Down. Make sure you check them out on all the shows that are coming up. Put in Suspect Down DC Band in your web searcher of choice, and I'm sure lots of stuff will come up. And of course, thank you for listening to StageCraft. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop the stream now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit the button.
Really?
Do it.
Doing it.
Do it.
Don't